So if you didn't know, I'm a huge fan of ska music. Basically, I like music that sounds like this. But then also sometimes like this. You know, that wonderful music that originated from Jamaica around the 1950s and was a blend of rhythm and blues, jazz, calypso, and mento. But enough about that, this isn't a music channel, but I thought it would be fun to look at some ska tracks that are in video games. Of course, there are some rules. First, no songs that were already on a band's album and then just got added to a video game, so no Tony Hawk here. Second, well, I guess no, there's really only one rule, outside of being somewhat ska in composition. So first, in a runner-up type position is the opening theme from Mario Kart Double Dash. This only makes a runner-up spot due to being so stripped down in general. It comes in hot with this horn-driven emphasis on the upbeat and a driving bass line, but most of the song is just a melody and bass line with a bit of a surf beat. Honestly, some band needs to cover this ASAP and fill out the rest of it. Also, we may as well get KK Ska out of the way from the Animal Crossing series, which is only a runner-up because of how obvious it is. But I love Animal Crossing and I love this track. I would always want to request it when KK Slider would show up, and first order of business in every new Animal Crossing game was to get it playing on my home stereo. Alright, let's get to the actual songs in the games I want to talk about. This isn't a top 5 list, so not like these are really ranked any higher for any reason than the last two, but I wanted to focus on these more. In fact, I'm kind of cheating right away, and up first is the entire Incredible Crisis soundtrack, composed by the wonderful Tokyo Ska Paradise Orchestra. A pure force of music, this band has done everything from release traditional ska and jazz fusion songs, ska punk bangers, built it out crazy high energy pop tracks for anime, and just collaborated with other artists like Puffy Amayumi. Incredible Crisis is beyond a strange game, but if you're still trying to decipher what ska music even is, this should provide a good baseline. It was released on June 24th, 1999 in Japan, and then made it to the US and Europe of November 2000. Definitely the tail end of the ska craze here in the US, but as we'll see with the rest of these songs, Japan just doesn't care about that. The game follows a family trying to get to grandma's birthday and finding themselves in a mess of wacky situations while doing that. It's basically a minigame collection, not my favorite style, but with an interconnected plot. Each of the 3 family members go about their day trying to get ready for a birthday dinner and then have to complete the impossible to do it. TSPO, also sometimes referred to as ska para, provide one hell of a soundtrack for this game, dripping with that fun, upbeat ska tracks with flavors of the other genres they tend to explore. There are even a few really tight funk tracks and what I can only describe as straight up video game tunes. It is a really solid album. Honestly, don't know if I could pick just one track on here, as they are all not only work perfectly in context of the game, they more often than not seem composed around the game, but also stand really well on their own. But if I had to, I might go with Ska Horse for the section Titanic Away. This really more traditional take on ska with that ska para energy and a darker tone just really catches me. I love how it starts with this low piano line with the congas and a drum kit for this Afro-Cuban groove before breaking into this really danceable ska. It eventually comes back around to another piano and drum part before breaking down into a sax solo like a solid bop chart before going right back into the main section to play us out. It is such a well-composed song, and the musicianship for the whole thing, not surprisingly, is so spot on. I can't stop focusing in on the drums for this one, which I'm sure has something to do with why I enjoy it so much. I don't think I'd recommend this game for everyone, but I definitely think everyone should check out the soundtrack. It is non-stop hits from top to bottom, even with a bit of video gamey filler in there on occasion. Next is a track from Sonic Rush that certainly floats into a gray area, but I almost had to include it because it has ska right in the name. Now, Sonic Rush was released in November 2005 during that era when Sega had absolutely no idea what they wanted to do with Sonic. That, let's just say, interesting Sonic reboot came out exactly 1 year later, for example. So Sonic Rush plays much more like the classic Sonic games and the ones on the Game Boy Advance, but features weird, tall, and skinny Sonic, and of course uses both screens on the DS for the playfield. Rush is not a name chosen randomly either. This game thrives on speed, and to a fault. there were certainly plenty of times I remember playing this game and feeling like I had lost all control. So not surprisingly, the songs tend to lean into the fast and energetic vibes. Ska Cha Cha is not the best example of ska music, and it certainly isn't a cha-cha, but it wears the ska aesthetic on its proverbial sleeve, while feeling very of the times in terms of how Sega music was sounding around then. It might as well be ripped straight from Jet Set Radio. Now that has everything to do with it being composed by Hideki Nakanuma, and if you like his work, this shouldn't surprise you. Voice samples, synths, layers of noise, it's just pure energy. The ska feeling comes from basically anything and everything taking turns, emphasizing that upbeat, and is the same reason it also just doesn't feel like ska as well, since it almost becomes more like a club beat, with so many layers hitting on the same upbeat at times. Ska starts to lose itself when too many things hit on the upbeat with nothing covering the back at all. This song makes me picture this house party where someone put on a ska record and then by the end of it, everyone has had way too many drinks, one group is walking through the house in a cha-cha line, and everyone else has grabbed whatever instrument they can. And well, I really love it. Now let's switch gears a bit for a super fun song, but a game style I'm not such a fan of. Something about minigame collections, I can't maintain interest in them. Rhythm Heaven is a minigame collection based all around music and not shockingly, rhythm. The second in a series, but first international release July 31st, 2008 Japan, and then everywhere else starting in April of 2009. It has a lot in common with WarioWare in terms of style, animation, and general wackiness, with the designer Kazuyoshi Asawa sharing the connection between the two series and both being developed internally at Nintendo. But that is all a story for another time. But there is one particular minigame that brings the ska and is the remix of Munchie Monk with the track Munchie Monk Circus. In this little minigame, you have to tap along to the snare as the monk slaps food into his mouth, all the while this octet of brass and woodwind playing elephants lays down some mad ska style. Despite the annoyance of how ska music often gets called circus music, Munchie Monk Circus is a hell of a track in its short runtime. It starts off with this synth and drum opening that reminds me of something straight out of New Wave, and then transitions into the solo trombone section that gets picked up by a synth line. It has a lot of two-tone ska vibes, and if it was a bit slower and didn't become a full party song after a few sections, that placed it squarely in that third wave sound. In fact, for being only a minute 30 in runtime, there's a lot happening here. We even get some timpani in it eventually for some extra boomy percussion. It is a fun song that honestly comes and goes too quickly. Now pushing even further into the 2000s, a track from a Wii game that released in 2009, this banger is from a really interesting title called The Munchables. The Munchables is a game that, well, I'm not exactly sure I know how to describe it. It often gets thrown into the platformer genre, and yeah, you can jump, but is more like if classic Pac-Man was in 3D with a little bit of that Katamari flair. For a quick summary, an invasion of space pirates crashes your good time and steals your legendary orbs. Now keep your rainbow world happy. Playing as either Munchie or Chomper, you just eat and eat and eat all the conveniently fruit and veggie-like space pirates you can in any given level while leveling up and putting on some serious mass. It is a charming, bonkers game that I feel like has mostly flown on the radar since the release, and I really need to do a whole video on it sometime. So of course, such a game needs an uplifting, danceable soundtrack that keep that pep in your step as you eat the entire world. Well, luckily, you definitely get that in the track Panic Restaurant that plays during Boss Fight. A super catchy ska track with some of that dirty punk flavor. Just enough to perfectly integrate some distorted guitar and minor chords, along with a fun surf guitar part in there. Honestly, this is a track that kind of has it all. Twirly synths, killer horn lines, samples that imitate gang vocals, or even timpani again in there during a bridge where it contrasts this high warbling synth line. The song is such a banger and has so much of that ska punk goodness, I had to double check it wasn't just from another band like Ska Para again. I mean that in the best way. I'm not sure who on staff from Namco Bandai composed this one, but I'm definitely a big fan of it. This one is going on a few playlists. Well, that's all for me. I hope you found some new music to check out, or if you were really vocal about your dislike of ska, you found a reason to give it another try. If you know of any games with some fire ska tracks, please drop them in the comments below. I'd love to check them out if I haven't yet. As always, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, ring the bell, all that garbage. I'll see you next time.